The courtroom was silent, until the sound of a slap shattered the air. A police officer's hand had just struck a young black woman across the face, right there in front of the judge, the jury, and everyone watching. Gasps filled the room. Some people looked away in shame. Others whispered in shock. But she, her name was Danielle Carter, 29 years old, did not cry. She didn't even flinch. She stood there, her eyes locked forward, her jaw tight, as if the world had just tried to break her, and failed. And then, something happened that nobody could have predicted. Within minutes, Danielle would walk across that same courtroom, step past the officer who humiliated her, and sit in the judge's chair. How did this happen? How could a woman go from being slapped in open court to becoming the one who held the gavel of power? This is Danielle's story. A story of pain, injustice, courage, and an unshakable belief that no one can steal your dignity unless you let them. Chapter 1: A Broken System. Danielle grew up in a poor neighborhood in Atlanta, Georgia. Her mother cleaned houses, her father worked double shifts at a factory, and still, there were nights when the family went to bed hungry. From an early age, Danielle learned the world did not treat everyone the same. She saw her classmates punished for small mistakes while others got away with worse. She noticed how police cars patrolled her neighborhood more than others. Her mother used to whisper to her at night, "Baby, you're black, you're a woman, and you're poor. That means the world will try 3 times harder to keep you down. But you gotta be 4 times stronger to rise up." Those words carved themselves deep into Danielle's soul. Years later, Danielle worked as a paralegal. She dreamed of becoming a lawyer, maybe even a judge one day. She spent nights studying law textbooks after long shifts, determined to prove she was more than the limits society placed on her. But one evening, while walking home, her life turned upside down. Police stopped her. They said she fit the description of a robbery suspect. She protested, showed her work badge, even begged them to check the surveillance cameras at her office. But the officers weren't interested in truth, they were interested in power. They arrested her. Charged her with resisting. Threw her in a cell. Her dignity was stripped, her voice silenced. For 2 nights, she sat on a cold bench, replaying her mother's words, "You gotta be 4 times stronger." Chapter 3: Courtroom Humiliation. On the day of her hearing, Danielle stood in court wearing a borrowed blouse and skirt, wrists shackled. She expected fairness. She expected at least to be heard. Instead, she was treated like a criminal before she even spoke. When she tried to explain herself, a white officer shouted, "Shut up. You speak when spoken to." Danielle, trembling but defiant, lifted her chin and said, "I have the right to speak. I have the right to defend myself." The officer's face twisted with anger. And then, slap. The blow echoed in the room, as if meant not just for her, but for every person who ever dared to demand justice. The courtroom froze. The judge lowered his eyes. Nobody moved. It was as if the system itself wanted her silent. But Danielle didn't cry. She didn't bow her head. She whispered to herself, "They will not break me." Chapter 4: The Turning Point. What happened next shocked everyone. The judge, instead of ignoring the slap, slammed his gavel down. "This is unacceptable," he thundered. "Officer, step back." Murmurs spread across the courtroom. The officer looked stunned, as if he'd expected protection, not punishment. Then the judge did something nobody saw coming. He looked at Danielle and said, "Miss Carter, I have read your case file. I know your background. I know you studied law. And I know what has been done to you is wrong. Today, this courtroom will see something different." He stood up, walked down from the bench, and in front of everyone, he gestured for Danielle to sit in his chair. "Take this seat," he said firmly. "Because one day, you belong here." The room gasped again. Cameras clicked. People whispered. The very woman who had just been slapped now sat where justice itself was supposed to live. Danielle's hands shook as she lowered herself into the chair. For the first time, she felt what her mother meant. Strength wasn't about what the world gave you, it was about what you claimed for yourself. Chapter 5: The Climb. That day did not erase Danielle's struggles. The charges were eventually dropped, but the trauma lingered. She faced whispers in her community, doubt from colleagues, rejection letters from law schools. But every obstacle became fuel. She studied harder. She worked longer. She refused to give up. Years later, Danielle walked across a graduation stage, receiving her law degree. She passed the bar exam on her first try. She became a defense attorney, fighting for those who had no voice. And one unforgettable morning, she returned to the same courthouse where she had once been slapped. Not as a defendant. Not as a victim. But as Judge Danielle Carter. Chapter 6, Justice in Her Hands. On her first day wearing the black robe, Danielle paused before taking her seat. She remembered the humiliation, the slap, the silence of the courtroom. And then she remembered her mother's voice. Be 4 times stronger. She sat in the judge's chair, not as a symbol of vengeance, but as proof that no matter how the system tries to break you, dignity and determination can rewrite your destiny. From that day on, she was known as the judge who listened, who cared, who believed in second chances. She wasn't just fair, she was human. Final message. Danielle's story is a reminder: the world may try to silence you, humiliate you, or strip you of your dignity. But strength is not about never falling, it's about rising every time you do. She was slapped in court. She was silenced by power. But in the end, she sat in the judge's seat, because no one can steal your future if you refuse to let go of it. Backhand index pointing right. If Danielle's story touched your heart, drop a comment below and share what it made you feel. Your words matter. Speech balloon. Let's talk about resilience, justice, and courage together in the comments. And don't forget, subscribe to Be Kind Always for more powerful, life-changing stories. Your support helps us bring more voices like Danielle's to light. Because in this world, we always rise higher when we choose to be kind always.